try to combine some beans, harvest some beans. In the farm or in the area of where we had the flood. As you can see, a lot of these soybeans are laying down on the ground. There's probably over half this field here, which it's about, I want to say maybe 30 acres total. Over half of it has gotten flooded out. So yeah, it's not good. Oh, and here is the yield so far. See how many acres this is that I've done. So yeah, almost, what is it, 10 acres, 9.4, and the yield's 18.5. So yeah, not very good. So we're gonna go ahead and get started here in the 9770. Go ahead and kick on your separator with that button. And then this is your header button right here. Push that forward. Kicks on your header. You always want to be idling when you kick all that stuff on, because when I first started farming, which was, I don't know how many years ago, several years ago. Sorry about the blurriness. I failed to make sure the machine was in idle before I took off and turned on the separator. And it just so happened that it ended up breaking the combine, where the engine, I'm not sure, I can't remember the name of the part. It was outside the engine that came to a shaft that ran the hydraulic pumps. See, there's a chunk right there. I'm gonna try to go over a chunk. When I say chunk, that's just a piece of wood that floated in, like driftwood that floated in from the creek. I've really got to watch. Oh, there's a big piece over there. I've really got to watch when I combine out here. Actually, I don't even know why I'm out here, because the yield's not the greatest. I'm taking a chance on destroying something on this combine, and I don't want to do that. It's definitely not worth that. So cutting it in this direction that we're going actually is the best option, because it is leaning really, really hard towards this direction, towards us. The water came across here. Oak Creek runs right through there on that side of the field. Hello, heard ya. It's yelling at me. The creek runs again right through there along the edge of the field. The water was rolling this way back when it flooded, and as you can see in the mirror, it's dusty as all get out down there. Can't hardly even see behind the combine. Luckily, the wind is going the right direction. There's some wind. There's some dust. All right. I want to turn on the auto steer. Kind of like autopilot in a plane, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how autopilot in a plane works, but I'm assuming it's similar. It makes our job so much easier. And what I mean by easier, we can concentrate on things that we weren't able to concentrate on before, you know. So it has made, you know, the thing is, every day it seems like, though, you gotta make sure that the guidance lines line up, and in order to reset them, you have to hit that button there in the middle, and it will reset your guidance lines from the day before. Sometimes when you're not running RTK, it will be off a pretty good ways from one day to the next. So yeah, that's what we got going. These beans did not get flooded up here on this high hill. They looks like they were out of the water, so they are doing a lot better. the yield is a lot better. I wouldn't say it's, you know, because we had a drought year. The year we had was unbelievable. The lack of rain during the growing part of the flowering part of the soybean plant was minimal. We had very little rain, and then we had a bunch of rain to the point that it was way too much. It's cost me a lot of money. I do have crop insurance, but crop insurance is not free. It's very expensive, especially if you take out the correct policy. Interesting side note about crop insurance. I have had crop insurance almost every year I've farmed. Well, last year I was tired of paying for crop insurance. Just kept paying for it, and every year it seemed like I was yielding, you know, better than what my guarantee was, which is what you want. You don't want to be farming for insurance. You want to be doing the best you can do over what your production averages are from year to year. So you want to be better and better every year, which is what you want, honestly. Well, I have been doing that. I've been doing really well when it comes to yielding crops. Either the weather has really helped out, or, you know, there's a combination of things. Putting the proper nutrients down, or planting the right bean. I plant Asgrow beans. I am now. These are actually seed production beans through Asgrow. This is the first year that I've planted them. They are excellent bean. When the water, there's two pieces of wood there. When the water didn't get the beans, the beans were actually looking really good. They're almost to the point of being finished, making you know, their maturity, and then the flood came. They were doing okay. They weren't bad. The irrigated ground is the ground that got hit the worst. It's closer to a creek. It's called Crooked Creek. I can irrigate out of that creek, and it seems like it just does a just better dirt. All those soybeans gone. They had at least 3 or 4 feet of, look how dusty it is. You can't even see. They had 3 or 4 feet of water over top of the beans, not in the field, but over top of them for a pretty good while. Actually, there was 3 floods. The first flood was a problem. The second flood was a little worse, but after the second flood, we got a good little shower, and it rained and it washed all the mud and dirt off the soybeans, and I was really surprised, and I was being optimistic about the crop. Well, then the third flood came. It was about a week later, and it was the worst one of all. And we never did get a good rain after that flood. The dirt stayed on, the leaves, the beans died prematurely, and it just has turned into a terrible yielding crop. As you can see, there's a fine line right there of where the beans got flooded and where they didn't. It's just a higher part of the field. The farms that we farm around here, your best place to have a crop is in the low areas. It's better dirt, there's more moisture. It seems like crops just do better. The downside to that is when we get a flood from the creek that's over there along that hillside, it has nowhere to go but out into your field. I have never seen the creek, which this creek here running along here is called Hog Creek. I have never seen that creek get out like that in August. It's the biggest I think I've ever seen that creek, ever. But it's also the biggest I've ever seen it in August. So It was very bad timing. You know, a lot of people could say, well, it destroyed your crop, and it did. It completely destroyed it. But the one thing that I've been thinking about throughout this whole disaster that we've had is what would happen, or what would have happened, if these crops were not in the field when the flood and the water came rushing across here. It probably would have been a disaster even worse. The current of the water would have probably caused some major erosion, probably would have taken a lot of dirt away, because typically when we get flooding, it's usually sometimes in the winter time or in early spring when there's not a crop out here. And I try to plant cover crops to help protect the soil, but sometimes some years I'm not able to plant the cover crop. I'm actually getting ready to put cereal rye in this field, or winter rye, whenever we get done combining and harvesting for cover crop. So that's the plan. But I will say, if I would not have had a crop in here, there may have been a complete disaster when it comes to soil erosion, and we might have lost all of our topsoil. So it could be a good thing that we had crops in the field. Just not sure. I mean, obviously I lost a lot of money, but I would rather lose a little money now than lose all my topsoil for years to come. Because if that topsoil leaves, the top layer of dirt, if it goes down the creek and washes into the Gulf of Mexico at some point, then I don't have a farm left to plant soybeans or plant corn or wheat on. So it's probably a good thing that we did have a crop in the fields, because it actually helped hold the dirt together. It helped keep erosion to a minimum. Now, I'm not saying we didn't have any erosion, because we did, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Now, that spot we just drove through is a low spot in the field. I need to work on that a little bit to try to get that to be able to plant into it. Just drowns out every year because of the water. The water that comes off the hills eventually ends up in that low spot of the field, and the water doesn't have anywhere to go. So right now we are can't even see in the back glass because it's so dusty. But there's the crop coming in. Very, very dusty. It's almost impossible to keep your equipment clean in these conditions. Every evening I use a Stihl backpack blower, a gasoline powered blower, to blow the combine, the header, or most of the header off, to keep it from turning into mud as we get these dewy mornings. Because the dew that settles on the equipment, if there's dirt on it, it eventually turns to mud. And then that doesn't come off until you pressure wash it with the power washer, steam cleaner, whatever it may be. So I'm using a MacDon header. It's a 35-foot MacDon header, FD135. I think it was a 2020 model. And this combine is a 2010 9770. Every year we do quite a bit of work to get the combine into shape, so I don't have as many problems in the field. There's a mechanic that comes out usually and helps work on the combine to make sure everything's right. He is dang good. One of the best around. Of course, I help him as well. This winter or spring, early spring, I'd say it was February, January, March, I can't remember what month he came out. He came to the farm and we worked on the combine. I believe it was for 3 days. And we do have a cabin that he that was in the same location as the combine. He stayed in the cabin and had a pretty good time. Well, I had a pretty good time visiting with him and helping him work on it. but he does great work. It's worth hiring somebody to come do a job that they're so used to doing that it goes by twice as quick. Whereas if you were going to do it and wasn't sure how to take this, that, and whatever apart, those guys who are experienced, you wonder why it costs so much to have them come out, because they're taking half the time to do it. There's times where you sit there and you look at a problem piece of equipment and you're like, how in the world did they get that thing loose? How do you take this apart? How do you get this idler off? Those guys pull out 2 or 3 tools from their toolbox in their truck, their mobile equipment truck, mechanic truck. Next thing you know, they will have it off in the time it takes you to figure out what wrench you need. It's pretty amazing to watch these guys work. So for everybody that questions, man, I just don't know if I want to pay a mechanic to come out and work on my equipment because it's so expensive. Well, you got to remember, these guys do it for a living, and the knowledge that they have that you don't is worth quite a bit. See, there's a problem right there. The creek got out, and actually it looks like it either deposited some rocks in the field, stones, or it washed out deep enough of the soil that maybe that's just what was down below the topsoil. So right there, the topsoil is probably gone. There's no more topsoil in that part of the field. So what I will have to do is go over here to the edge somewhere with the skid steer and pick several loads of dirt out of there and pick it up and bring it to that location to help put it back in place and get it back into where it needs to be. Oh, and if you ever see spots like that in the field, I don't do this very often, especially with all the GPS mapping equipment that we have. That right there is a skip. It's about an acre that just so happened that I don't know, I can't remember what happened when that happened. If I ran out of seed, and then in the process of refilling the planter up, went somewhere else to plant on the farm and forgot about it. But I noticed that on my first application of post-application spraying on these beans that I skipped that part of the field. The problem with coming back and trying to replant that is the time that I came back to spray was probably 3 weeks maybe after I planted it. So the other beans that were planted were probably, I don't know, 6-7 inches tall. They had several leaves already on the plants, and they were pretty big. If I would have came back and spot planted that, first of all, I would have ran over who knows how many soybeans to get to that part of the field. And right now, if I was to be combining those, oh, and there's what happens when you hit a chunk. Your combine header, and hold on, I need to raise this reel up or I'm gonna have problems when all this soybean material tries to come back out. It puts a lot of pressure on these bars and on these teeth. So I'll hit the button to reverse the header. Now, if you're a little too high with your reel, you can bring your reel down to help pull this wad of soybean material back out. Sometimes I like to back up. I usually do this at the same time, but being as how I'm holding the phone and doing it at the same time, it's a little bit more difficult. So I'll bring the reel back closer to us, push it down a little bit, and then I can hit this button here for the header to reverse it. So I pull it back and it'll knock off. Oh, what do you know? As you can see here, That's a piece of wood. Wonder where that came from. Oh, yeah, probably the creek. So that's what I'm dealing with. If I'm not paying attention, in some of these I am paying attention, I just can't see the pieces of wood. That's why I say, is this really worth coming out here and combining? I just don't know. So what I'll do is I will turn the header, or turn the separator off, and I'll try to raise the reel as high as it'll go. And we got to come back out here. And pick this piece of driftwood out of here. It's a pretty good piece. So what will happen is that you will pick up a piece of wood like this, and then it starts going into the header. You stay out here, not out there. And once it goes into the header, it follows these belts. Who knows where it was at. And it'll eventually get into that drum right there. And see these teeth that are pulled up. If you hit it hard enough and it hits right, it'll break those. You don't want that. My old John Deere header, it was a 925 or it was a 930 F. There's some of my old Gatorade bottle. You know, this is one of the things that probably bothers me more than anything, is when people litter. It just bugs me. I mean, if you have to pick up people's stuff, which my old job, and I'll come back and, I don't know, I'll probably get that some other point. I can't carry that around the combine because it's nasty, it's full of dirt and mud. People just throw stuff out, and when you have to pick up other people's trash, you get pretty upset when you see people's trash laying around. So that floated in from the creek, from somewhere, who knows where. Probably, more than likely, up at the bridge by the highway, which is about a mile away or two. So make sure you're in idle. Start your separator. And then there's your header button, and see what happens here. You hope that there is not another piece of wood in that mess. And there was. There was definitely another piece of dirt or wood in there. I could hear it hitting the... And there's another piece. I don't like that. Hopefully, which it sounds like it, most of it is half-rotten pieces of wood. Because if it was fresh, green wood, it would not as easily go through the combine. So right now, I'm going to take the header and tilt it back. The indicator for tilting it back is right there. A through C, or A through D. And there's a button, there's a button right here that you click one way or the other, and as you watch, the header can tilt forward and tilt backwards. So I'm going to tilt it all the way back. That way, if I do find a stick or a piece of wood, maybe it will go over top of it instead of pulling it into the header. Because honestly, I can't really tell very good what we got going on out here. Like these aren't very hard to see that there's not a piece of wood, but when they're laying down really tight to the ground, it's a little bit more difficult. Oh, and also other videos that I've had or other fields that I've been in, and I think I showed it on one of the videos before. Deer antlers are a common problem in these fields. Well, a lot of people would say, well, don't you ever pick up deer sheds? Absolutely I do. If I see a deer antler in the field, I will go way out of my way to go pick it up. Because what problems could a deer antler cause? That's a good question. A lot. Number one, when they go in the header, they cause problems, or even in the combine, they get sucked in, they cause problems. But most importantly, the amount of flat tires that I get every year because of deer antlers is very expensive. To the point that I'm sure that it costs us well over $5,000 a year to fix tires. Some tires get ruined. I ruined a 50-inch tractor tire this year. Those are not cheap. It went through the sidewall of the tractor tire. I may even show a picture of it, but it was not good. Well, when you ruin one tire and you got 4 on the back of a tractor, and you can't find one the same kind or the same tread depth, it causes mixed or mismatching, if I can talk, mismatching of the tires, and that causes problems. So you almost sometimes, if you can't find the right tire, you have to buy new tires, and that's what I did. They were cheaper tires, and I ended up going with a Firestone tire, and my dad and I ended up putting those on ourselves. So yeah, that's another perk of being a farmer, is sometimes you gotta do everything yourself if you want it done in a timely fashion, because there's not many tire guys out there that change monster tires like these that were running on combines and tractors. You don't see them very often, and when they are in business, everybody and their brother wants to use them to to fix their tires. So yeah, we have our tire changing equipment, and we do a lot of that ourselves. So I need to keep my eyes on the road here, or in the field header, if you want to call it that, because you got stuff like this pile of drift out here. Yep, look, there's a piece. If I had to stop this thing, the header, immediately, there's a button right here. That's my oh shh button, or oh crap button. That's for the last ditch effort. And what that do is it will immediately stop the header, which is a great feature, because sometimes coming down here and turning this off is cumbersome, whereas your hand's usually up here on this, joystick, controlling the header and controlling the auger and your up and down height, whereas you can just hit that button right there with your finger. It makes it a lot easier. So usually I've got my button when it's bad circumstances like this, conditions with potential for major problems, I'll have my finger right there on that button, waiting to push it. There's a piece of wood. Did I get it? Nope, missed it. Good. So these beans are laying like flat on the ground this way. I really need to be combining back that way. But if I was to go down there, combine back, go down there, it would take forever. It's actually doing a pretty good job of picking the soybeans up, even with my header tilting back, so I don't pick up a lot of pieces of wood. These headers are phenomenal, unbelievable. I highly recommend MacDon headers. They are built strong, tough, and none of the teeth, or fingers rather, fingers on the reel ever get cut. I've seen a lot of John Deere headers, which I'm not bashing John Deere, but since they have a flexible cutting edge, you see a teeth all the time cut by the sickle on the front. These do not have that problem because they won't allow the teeth to get in the cutter bar, just their design. But they are built well. Now just look how dusty it is. It's unbelievable. Now, soybeans are dusty to combine, don't get me wrong, but this is a mix of soybean dust and a whole lot of dirt from the creek, or from the erosion. So it's a combination of both. But the dirt from the creek and the flood probably are twice as bad as what soybean dust is usually. And I don't know what it's doing to the combine. I'm sure it's not good. I'm sure it's not good on the header. It's probably like sandpaper, causing issues with metal parts and pieces, getting into bearings. I mean, because this stuff is pretty powdery, pretty fine. It's about like baby powder, or worse. So yeah, it's a disaster. That truck over there is 3/4 full, and the garden cart is empty. So I've got quite a bit of combining I can do before, especially when you're combining 12 bushel to the acre, or 11. I've got quite a bit of combining to do before I need to go haul that off. I'm taking it to the grain bin. Some of this is not dry, some of it is dry. I want to put in the grain bin and use a stir air to stir it up. And the fan, turn the fan on if need be. I usually check it with a portable checker, just to make sure. But yeah, there's the yield. It's awful. Again, is it worth it? Who knows? I guess it is. It's either that or leave it in the field. But right now I can't even see, which is a big problem because I don't know if there's any pieces of wood out here. So this is the struggles, people. The struggles. But I love it. We have two businesses, primarily two. We farm, and we do one other business. It actually probably pays more of the bills, not the farming. The farming pays for equipment. I have some really nice equipment. We spend a lot of money on equipment. At some point I will have some videos on what we do for another business. But you got to come back for that. When I get a chance, I will take some videos of that. That's a whole different deal. I am very fortunate that I have a father who can help out on the farm, but also he manages and takes care of the other business. I help out there, but he does 99.9%. I wouldn't say 99.9. He probably does 99.999%. I do help out. You know, it depends on the time of year too. When it's time to combine beans or harvest corn or cut wheat, I am pretty much stuck in a tractor, stuck in a combine, whatever that may be, driving a semi-truck. And I am lucky to have my father to help out. He makes life a lot easier. There's times where we work together quite a bit. There's times that we can't. He's got to take care of the other business. So most of the time, I'm a lone ranger, and that's why I have to have the equipment that we have, just so that I'm more efficient. I don't have time to, number one, work on down equipment, two, use small equipment. I've got to get in and get it done. So yeah, that's our plan, and I'm just gonna keep doing this until I don't. Have a good one, living a dream.